It's a pleasure, Rena. Thank you.
Joining us now from Washington is Michael Allen. He's a managing director at Beacon Global Strategies, also a former staff director for the House Intelligence Committee. Mike, you worked on the Intel Committee. What do you make of the developments today?
Well, this is an extraordinary series of developments to have a committee whose mission is to oversee the intelligence community, drafting a memorandum, orchestrating it to go to the president, and thereby having it declassified and released. So it's certainly a first as far as the committee goes. It certainly looks like they are motivated by an effort to discredit the FBI's FISA application process. And the memorandum itself, I think, is sound, but within the actual four corners of the document. But what we don't have here in the document is whether the FBI relied on other sources of information to the court. And if they did, then that makes this particular memo interesting, but not particularly relevant.
And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have, particularly in the intelligence community, is what other hard evidence did the FBI have when they obtained this FISA warrant? We're seeing sort of one side of this. I'm curious, though, Mike, you were on this House Intelligence Committee. You understand how this all works. When you look at the release of how these warrants were obtained, it was under the Obama administration. Yesterday, former CIA Director John Brennan said that I've never witnessed the reckless partisan behavior of today's GOP, talking about this upcoming release. Do people in the Obama administration have anything to worry about? We're in uncharted territory, and it's clear that this many people are coming forward saying that this is very much a cherry-picked memo.
I definitely think, I definitely think it's a cherry-picked memo. Here in the memorandum, they say that the salacious, unverified Steele memorandum was, and here's the key word, the essential part for the reason that they were able to get the FISA application. If that's true, I mean, that's interesting, and it sort of bothers me that they would be using an opposition research document. But really the question then becomes, well, do the facts matter, or do how you got the facts matter? Does the context, should that have some kind of bearing on the application? It does sort of bother me in the just standing alone that a opposition research document would be the basis, if true, or the essential basis for the reason that you got a FISA application. But the memorandum itself doesn't say what else they relied on. And as we've heard here on your air in the last 15 minutes, Carter Page was the subject of an FBI FISA application long before the Trump presidency got moving. So, you know what? I think that there's more to tell here before we're able to essentially decide how relevant this is and whether it should be something, as they say, damning to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, that's a great point that our Jeff Pegues was making earlier, that beyond this memo, it's not included about that detail on Carter Page. When you look at the impact of this and the relationship with moving forward with the law enforcement and the intelligence community, you know very well, getting any sort of walk-in intel, assets on the ground, particularly in a foreign country, it is very difficult. What sort of impact do you think this will have in the intelligence world?
Well, a couple of things. Well, one, I think it's very damaging for the morale of our career men and women in the intelligence community. They don't want to be a political football. Here they are being a political major part of a major political fight here, and so that's uncomfortable for them, and I think it has a dispiriting effect. However, you know, the NSA took a real beating, unjustifiably in my view, but after the Snowden revelations. CIA certainly took a beating after 9/11 and after the Iraq War. So I think they will survive. So that's point one. Point two is I don't see anything in the memorandum that particularly sacrifices sources or methods or would have a lasting harmful effect on sort of our intelligence collection. It may have a damaging, unjustified view on how the American people see their national security apparatus, but there are no sources and methods revealed in here per se. But it does bother me nonetheless because I don't want to see these intelligence community elements that collect information so our policymakers might be able to make the right decisions. I don't like anything that tends to suggest that they ought to be discredited because they are doing a good job. They're largely apolitical, and what they're doing in this case is trying to combat a real Russian counterintelligence threat here in Washington, D.C., and so I worry that that part of their mission will be affected through this big political kerfluffle.
It's a significant portion, too. Mike Allen, I want to thank you very much for joining.